The first ever competitive enlisted tournament was a blast. I had a hand in organising the tournament alongside fellow enlisted content creator Hey Quadro, and it was a huge success given the limited resources and limited time we had to plan it. But not only was it a huge success for those participating, it was a huge success for the team that I led, MajorMcGaming, as we won the first ever competitive enlisted esports tournament. And here's how we did it. Just before we start the video, be sure to click that subscribe button and like the video if you do like this new documentary style video. And I also want to state that today I have released my own Patreon for you to support the channel. Obviously there's no obligation to whatsoever, but you don't understand how much it would help me out to turn playing Enlisted and creating fun content about it my full-time job. So anything is welcome, and hopefully they come with pretty attractive perks for you all. I have also opened my new game store for you guys to see what games I play other than Enlisted, which all of you may enjoy, and by using those links I would receive a small commission on any purchase. So to begin with, I should probably let you know how our team was formed. My Discord server, join it by the way, I mean it's the home of the Enlisted World Champions. If you want to play with us in public matches, no matter your experience with the game, then you should be in it. We love helping players improve, and who knows, maybe you can participate in the next tournament. But my Discord server already contained many top tier players and people that I trusted, that I knew I needed on my team. In particular, my right hand Romanian man that I made second in command, Tornadobos, the experienced competitive enlisted player hailing from Czechia, Tomin01, and the very smart and full of ideas Polish powerhouse, Kinderkid 007. Together with my leadership from my British arse, which has led previous teams in other esports tournaments in other games to glory, we formed the Core 4 and the players that I would build the team around. Noticing that another team, the Enlisted Hero Association, we'll come back to them in this video, were stealing all of the game's assumed and so-called best players, we knew we had to do something to ensure our chances were very high. They were essentially the benchmark. If we could gather a group that could compete with that team, yet still listens to my calls, strategies and decisions, I fancied our chances much higher than theirs. But obviously, they didn't know this.
This feels a lot like hell.
As a result, our relatively unknown Core 4, as I'm going to call it from this point onwards, and our Discord hosted a few community events which you can get involved with in the future by joining our Discord on random matches and game modes on custom games, not related to the tournament at all. Now we did this for a bit of fun and to just get to know everybody in our community, but there was also a second purpose, to trial those who were interested in the competitive teams. We received almost 40 applications of interest, and most of these attended the events, which was a great opportunity to see those a cut above the average player. Many of these match results you can see on screen now, but after many of these matches that were just for fun, we ended up deciding on a final 10. But you must be thinking, why these guys? Some of them didn't even participate in the events, and some did, but didn't even get in the highest places on the leaderboards. Here's where our strategic picking of players came in. We first picked Quantum Dog, the Serbian flamethrower. He participated in our events and did very well in them with good engineer scores. He was also a fun guy to talk to and very talkative, but had no ego, which made it a no-brainer to pick him after the Core 4. Next, we had Angel World, the American who also performed very well in our events on the ground with decent engineer scores, yet we knew he was also a decent pilot, so his versatility and eagerness was a big plus for us, and he was in. After that was another American we called the Grenade Spanner, Military History 1, a very talkative human with good ability, yet a willingness to listen to calls, which in our book was the perfect recipe for success. ParaDivision, another enlisted content creator who is uploading his point of view of all of our tournament matches on his channel, which I'll link to in the description of this video, only played in a few of the later custom matches, but as I had already discussed with him about future collabs on our channel, hint hint, watch out for those coming soon, because in my opinion his enlisted guides are the most informative out of every enlisted content creator out there. I knew he was very knowledgeable about the game as a result. result. And combine that with a bit of classy German engineering. Scores.
That's quite big. Impressive.
So he'd be a perfect addition. The Welshman Swazi came next, another fellow content creator specialising in enlisted Twitch streams, which I will also place a link to in the description. Knowing he was a good player after playing against him a few times, we knew we could trust him and bring him on. He also brought the Dutchman Evslin with him, who he specifically rated as the best Axis player. High praise, I admit, but justified. He was brought on soon after we realised his potential. So there, we had the final 10, but something big happens to this lineup later. I should also say that we even created a second team with everyone who was interested, and they also competed in this tournament. And it was amazing to be able to send 2 teams from our community's Discord in this tournament, proving that our Discord community is just the place to be for all things enlisted. Because we didn't have long to host these trials before the tournament started, we did not have long to strategise and plan before the day. I knew we needed to grow our cohesion and sense of loyalty amongst our team, so I organised 2 things. One of these was a strategy session, but we also planned one organised scrimmage session with another team in the tournament, the Polish team, whose name roughly translates as Beasts of Wadowice. Thanks, Kinder. So we can put into practice our ideas and build confidence as a team going into the tournament. Developing our tactics was probably my favourite part of the little preparation that we did before the tournament started. But they were still very simple to ensure our team members could never get confused by anything. We got everyone in the first team together to go through every single map a day before the tournament starts. This was partly due to the lack of time between announcing the squad and the tournament date, but also because the announcement of the maps being used in the tournament kept changing until basically the final day, which wasn't ideal to say the least.
Check his hard drive.
That being said, we came up with strategies drawn up on something as simple as Microsoft Paint, such as these, which we are indeed happy to make public now for the good of future enlisted tournaments and competitive enlisted as a whole. For example, on our favourite map, which ironically we never actually played in the tournament, Pokrovskoye City, for the North spawn, we identified where to build rally points, the red flag things, excuse my drawings, where the key zones to control to win the game would be, which was the blue area, and the orange area depicted the key rally points to build right at the very start in the opening 30 seconds of the game and to maintain at all costs, with all other rally points being extras. Similarly, for the south spawn, we also marked out the same things, but in some of our other map strategies we drew other things, such as areas for smoke artillery if we needed it. For example, in the same map, if we needed to cross the road between points B and C to out-rotate the enemy. And also, difficult rally points were marked in orange, i.e. ones that we'd really like to get, but would probably rarely get or hold on to for long if we did manage to get them. There are also other annotated areas with key text or arrows depicting direction of movement. On the map Ruins of Vaux, you can see we had similar designs, but one new aspect was the brown X on each side. This actually reflected the area that you cannot build rally points. Well, you can build them, but because of the way Darkflow hasn't pruned their maps, the respawn screen blocks that area so you can actually just never spawn there. Darkflow are watching this video, and I know you do, because you've made changes to the game as a result of my previous videos. Just fix this.
We?
And besides this, there were many other silly things for these maps that often made one side much better than the other on pretty much every map, such as the areas of grey zones, which are different for the 2 teams, but in certain places that made rally points so overpowered, and also just how the map layouts worked. Some of them were just awful, like in the map Vers-sur-Mer in particular. If you spawned on the east side, you were basically screwed over, as you don't get that guaranteed safe point that in every other map you do. Look, if you spawned on the west side, you are guaranteed point A, and due to the contours of the map, you can see how difficult it would be for the enemy to even get there. Yet on the east side, you might think C is your guaranteed point, with B being the contested one between both teams. But you almost can never hold on to C, because the grey zone and the map contours allow the west side to build amazing flanking rallies to point C that you just can't ever get to or deal with. This map cost us our 100% record during the tournament, which we will come back to in this video. The point is, many of these maps had a bad side and a good side, and while for most of the maps, unlike Vers-sur-Mer, it wasn't the deciding factor, it really does give an advantage to the team on the good side, and Darkflow need to act on this. Or for future tournaments, we really need dedicated map makers to make custom maps for the events. Now that would really grow the game, and if you're interested in doing just this, please let me know. Now you may notice that in all of the maps we shifted our rally points often to only around 2 of the points out of 3. This is because to win a conquest map you only need to hold 2 points longer than you hold only 1, and it is made easier by identifying which points are the easiest to hold together, given the location of your spawns and distances between the points themselves, as well as map design and any buildings between them that might provide cover. Ruins of Vaux is a perfect example of this. On both sides, no matter where we spawned, we only prioritized points B and C, and many of our rally locations reflected this. Point A was basically completely ignored by us because it was just ridiculously open, except for when we were being attacked by all of the enemy team on 1 point, and we could send one guy to sneak point A from the enemy while they were focusing all their attention and might onto 1 point. Therefore, we could ensure that we would always hold on to 2 points, and the enemy teams were always screwed over, as if they try to take another with all their might, as we just said, we take the one that they already had and concede the points that they wanted, but forcing them to suffer terrible casualties. This meant that we were still in absolute control, and the enemy had achieved nothing for many deaths, and as a result, many tickets, especially as defending points is easier than attacking them. This was just one key part of our grand strategy not marked on these maps, this out-rotation of the enemy, and this is probably the biggest factor that won us matches. Due to these complex strategies, some have said that our MVP of the tournament was Microsoft Paint, which we drew all of these designs on, and I would agree. Who would have thought that Bill Gates was a fan of competitive Enlisted? I also mentioned that we scrimmed against the Polish team, and on screen are our results for the few matches that we were able to play, though due to time restrictions we couldn't do that many. Yet that still was so important for my team to build confidence in our team itself, the strategies and in each other, that we could really go on and win this thing. Yet this time was also when we brought on our replacement for Swazi, who dropped out of the tournament due to being busy on the day of it, and his replacement was indeed the famous content creator Enlightened Enlisted. Now he is also doing his own version of our team's events from his point of view on his channel, and he has recorded all of our matches, so I'll link his video in the description, and I even have a section with my voice on it explaining my point of view. The last thing we did was finalise which team member would play each campaign, as per rule 1 of the tournament. We came up with this order, though it did go through a few revisions, mostly because no one wanted to play Tunisia Axis.
Yes! Knew I could do it! Get me out of this shithole!
This order was chosen because we wanted our best fighters being the ones on the campaigns with the best weaponry, as this subdivision of the team's main job was to constantly storm points, take them, then hunt enemy rally points as soon as we took them. We wanted our rotators subdivision to have solid campaigns with still good weaponry, but to be the ones who would respond to calls, i.e. if I called that point B needed help because it was being stormed by a lot of enemy squads at once, these guys would go there, especially with flamethrowers, which could clear out a point instantly, and they're so overpowered. Our support subdivision was where I placed myself with Tunisia allies and the other least powerful campaigns in terms of weaponry. Our job was to make the crucial rally points at the start, which we marked on our maps, and maintain them at all costs to ensure we at least had 3 rallies up at all times in very good locations. We also then had to rotate between points that needed the support. Angel World was our dedicated pilot, as he was playing Normandy allies with the OP P-47s, so we'd mark and call that out in voice chat the places where we needed bombs or rockets, such as in big groups of enemies where we marked them, where potential enemy rally points could be, or if we needed a point cleared before we all collectively ran in on the ground. But he would also get on the ground and be a support player with us when needed, such as in maps where planes were not as effective, like Wilhelmstrasse. My role in particular was to lead the team, make all the calls and all the decisions. I decided which 2 points to prioritise and whether we needed to shift our focus during the game dynamically to 2 different points, as well as always looking at the map to demand my team to collapse a point on all sides or overwhelm it with sheer numbers, when I knew, due to other things going on in the game, that we could take it. I also had to instruct the pilot on where to bomb. I was regularly marking potential enemy spawn beacons and also the dedicated smoke artillery man if we ever lost points and needed to retake them. This resulted in us never having control of fewer than 2 points, which won us the tournament, in my opinion. Now I could go into so much more detail on all of our specific plans and even the smaller, more niche strategies, but this video would just end up being so long, as I love talking about strategy. And if you really want a video on all the specifics, then if this video hits 250 likes, I will do a video on it for you all, in the hope that it inspires the next generation of team leaders for future enlisted tournaments. Now I am sorry to say that I did not record the tournament matches, mostly because sometimes my PC drops frames when doing so at specific moments, and I did not want to be the reason why I lost fights and therefore we lost points as a team. So to not be too selfish and to not possibly let my teammates down, I made the decision to not record them. Now we were told around 3 teams dropped out before the day of the tournament, but that left us with 4 teams in the tournament, and half of those were actually from our server, which is another insane feat. The other 2 were the Beasts of Wadowice and the Enlisted Hero Association. Unfortunately, we were drawn in the semi-final against the stacked roster of Enlisted Hero Association, containing those players that Quadro has long called the best players of the game, such as H. Joey, The Wins, and more. But suddenly the nerves hit our voice channel, realizing probably that our toughest set of matches was going to be our first set of matches. But I rallied the troops, reminded them of our strategies and practice, and told them we just couldn't lose if we all did our jobs. And that is exactly what happened. We crushed them in the best of 3 series, 2-0, and they never got a chance to come into fruition. An insane upset, many people have called it. Now I'm not saying these games were not tough, because goddamn they were. I had to wash my hands between each game because of the sweaty nature of all of these matches, and I personally didn't even do that well in these games. But then again, my job was not to always be the main fighter, but to play in a support role and make the calls for my team, which is reflected in the fact that I am always first or near the top in point captures on the end of game statistics. The first game on Ruins of Vo was tough, but we were in front right from the off as our superior tactics led us to prioritise and hold both B and C very early, and we held them off from these points for long periods of the game, which made all the difference. They may have got more kills than us overall, and had a better KD ratio than our team, reflecting that these players really are good, and it's justified to call them that. But that doesn't mean it translates into wins. And in the second game on Birch Grove, we won for similar reasons, but more so, it was because of our identified key area highlighted in blue, as we controlled this area from the mid game into the late game, and there was no way back for them, meaning that even though we went very far behind early on in this game, we were able to claw it back by reclaiming that key area and spawning there with rally points, which did not allow the enemy to take any more points from us. Therefore, we were into the final. And in this final, we faced a familiar opponent, the Polish team, Beasts of Wadowice. They had beaten our second team in the other semi-final series, but this was not going to be as simple as the last time we faced them. They had improved significantly. They always had some top players on their team, like their leader, Bandita Jeden, who I respect immensely, but it was not a team the community particularly rated that highly. I knew the pitfall my team could go in as a result. We'd just beaten arguably the best team in the tournament, but we needed to not take this match lightly, as we would be punished. And we were. This was now a best of 5 series instead of a best of 3, so this would turn into a war of attrition. The first randomly chosen map was also familiar to us, Birch Grove. We had beaten this team on this map during the scrims, but we had also beaten Enlisted Hero Association earlier that same day, so we were confident going into it, perhaps overly so, as even though we won the game, there were actually a few moments where we lost control of all 3 points. We had a scare, but we overcame it. We were 1-0 up. The second match was on Vers-sur-Mer, and we were on the end of precisely the bad side I had previously explained in this video. As soon as we loaded in, we knew we were in for it here, and my strategy had proven correct. We never once could challenge point A. They held it the entire match, whilst we were constantly fighting for C and B, because the grey zones for both teams allowed the enemies to build rally points we just couldn't destroy, and we almost couldn't get out of our own spawn to fight them. This handed us our first loss of the entire tournament, and we knew we were in a fight. The mood was low. There were tensions brewing amongst our team, but I steadied the ship, knowing that the next game was absolutely crucial as to who would be going into the final game with the momentum. Would we crumble under the pressure? Not if I can have a say about it.
I'm not the Messiah! I say you are, Lord, and I should know I followed a few. Hail, Messiah! I'm not the Messiah. Will you please listen? I am not the Messiah. Do you understand? Honestly!
Only the true Messiah denies his divinity.
What? Well, what sort of chance does that give me? All right, I am the Messiah. He is the Messiah. Now, f*** off. off!
The third randomly chosen map was Wilhelmstrasse, a map we were comfortable on as a team, as many of us were Berlin campaign regulars. Now, after some issues with the servers and a player on the enemy team not loading into the game, we had to restart the game about 4 times before we got into an exact replica of the first game. This was a battle for our nerves, who would hold theirs during all these restarts, and it turns out we did, as we received reports that the Polish side were losing their mental edge that they had gained from their victory against us, and that's proved to be, as we swept the floor with them, and for a large proportion of that map we held all 3 points, in a devastating win. Momentum now was in our favour once more, and we headed into the final game, but once again we randomly received the dreaded Ruins of Vaux. Yet our strategy once more prevailed, prioritising B and C and only sneaking in to take A when the enemy were forced to send all players to one of our points. We comfortably dealt with them, winning the series 3-1, and the title of the first Enlisted World Champions was ours. If the replay mod was out already, as is expected to be during the next major update to the game of Enlisted, I would be able to explain my every move for you guys to understand why we won the series against all odds, and I'm sure that would be an incredibly interesting series on my channel, and I know I'd have a lot of fun making it. But this feature is not yet out, and neither was a live observer mode, which would have allowed Quadro to stream the matches live for you all to watch. As an experienced commentator, analyst and caster myself from other esports games, I would have loved to partake in this, but alas, as this was the first enlisted competitive tournament, it was never going to be plain sailing. Linking to this tournament was not without its flaws. Tournament organisation could have been drastically improved, maps chosen could have been a lot better, and the whole tournament could have been advertised and sold to the public much better than it was. But as mentioned before, I have lots of experience in this kind of thing, and I aim to host our own professional enlisted esports tournament soon, hopefully with the aid of fellow content creators such as Quadro and Enlightened Enlisted. If you guys like what you saw today, watch this video on screen now to explain how you can be a top player, placing at the top of the leaderboards of future enlisted events. But nevertheless, it's been an absolute pleasure storytelling to you guys today. Have a wonderful day, enjoy yourselves, and I'll definitely see you in the next one.